By the way, am I in your will?
All right. Are you about ready?
Yep.
All right. So, why don't you let us know how the genesis of Purple Gums from your memory?
Well, the way I remember it is, it's like there's prehistory, and then there's history. So the prehistory was actually the three of us played together at Glenn's funeral.
Ah, I forgot about that.
Now, is that the funeral where Leo Smith was there too?
Yes. He was there.
Yeah. But we played optics,
Yes.
and Bobby, you played, I played, and Wilbur conducted. And it was the very last piece of the service.
And I remember, seems like you marching past me or something
Mhm.
like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the one.
So, I think the shape of music to come happened in that moment. And then I think a couple of years went by, and then did you come and do some concert? We were doing some concerts for Glenn in Oakland. But I think it might have been just that particular concert you came up to play, where you played with and then you said, well, we ought to do something.
Yeah, that was at the funeral, wasn't it? Or the memorial.
I think it was a memorial we played later in Oakland.
Man. I'll let this be your memory.
But no, I think so. What happened was that you came and we saw each other in Oakland.
Yeah.
And you said we should do something.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. So, but we had already played together. We had met and played. The three of us had played in that, the last piece in Glenn's funeral. So that was when we did optics. So that's very clear in my memory. And so when you said we should do something, then it made a lot of sense then to be with, to have pull Roper into it. Because that's that was our connection. So I always think about it as kind of being somewhat connected to Glenn's passing.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about it that way before. That refreshes my memory now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mine too. Mine too. All right, well, I have a question connected with that, directly connected with that. I hadn't planned on this question. So we did that memorial at that particular church, because that's the church that Glenn worked at.
Right, the Sunday, he played there on Sundays.
He played there on Sundays. And he said to me once, "So Roper, I'm a minister of music."
Uh-huh.
And since he said that, I have kind of taken that on as a mantle, that wherever I'm playing, I'm ministering
Right.
to the audience.
Right.
Does that have any resonance with you, especially in relation to Purple Gums? Because to me, we have to convince people,
Right. But I also think that it has to do with some idea that we're needed to do this.
Who needs us? The world?
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, it's not like we need to do it. We just do it because it needs to happen.
Do you come to this out of experience, out of doing it, or that's a starting point? Was it a starting point, or this thought is a result of having?
Well, I think, going back to Glenn, part of it is that at a certain point we didn't really feel like we need to express ourselves anymore because we already kind of played, we played and we've expressed ourselves.
Mhm.
So then there really wasn't a need to express ourselves anymore. For ourselves.
Yes.
But there is a need for expression to happen. That it needs to happen in the world.
I agree with that.
So it's less about self-expression as just expression.
Yeah.
So I think that in some ways then that kind of sets it up where it's not really, we're not expressing ourselves necessarily, but we're just, expressing.
So when we play, in relation to that, is part of your method finding a way to open up to whatever's out there and then express it in a language where the audience can deal with it? Are you in some way a conduit? Since it's not self-expression, it's just expression. What are you expressing? Where does that come from? What's your strategy to express?
Well, I like what Bobby said about opening doors.
Uh-huh.
Is that we're just we're trying to find the way through the door.
Yeah.
And so part of it is you play something or you hear something and all of a sudden it seems like that's the way to go, the direction to go. It's like a window.
Well, does that suggest that when you say open the door, and I think we're on the same page, that we feel like there's something out there
Mm-hmm.
that we're going for?
Mm-hmm.
Not sure, but let's open this up.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's something there.
Right.
Some
ways being drawn in to something.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking this question is that, if I can, when you said we're not expressing ourselves anymore, and I think we all have agree on what you mean by that. And you said we're just expressing for the sake of expression. I know this gets kind of muddy here, but I'll let you wrestle with that too. But did you not feel like that there's something out there?
Yeah, something to
It's
pursue.
not like we're trying to be hip or anything.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this in the way of a question, if I can.
Mhm.
I don't get the feeling that you feel, or that we're trying to be hip. You see what I'm not?
Yeah, because I think that means that we kind of have something already in mind.
Yeah.
To style, right? We're not styling. We're not presenting something. We're after something.
So I'm trying to remember this. Are you recording this?
Oh, that's being recorded.
Yes.
Now, I know we're supposed to have a session together, but this is going where it's going. Now, in terms of like what we're just talking about, not reaching, but reaching freely, abstractly. On the other hand, like when we play tomorrow's Fat Tuesday.
It's what?
Fat Tuesday.
What is that?
That's
the Tuesday before Ash Wednesday.
Yeah, Mardi Gras.
Right, but I never heard that expression, fat Tuesday.
Well, that's what it's known down, in New Orleans.
New Orleans.
But that's the French. That's the English translation of Mardi Gras.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's Fat Tuesday. That's a certain history.
Yeah.
That's that New Orleans, for us, that's that New Orleans thing. Now, notwithstanding what I've said about preconceptions, it is also, I think, part of Purple Gums where we know that tomorrow's the day we're going to be performing. How much is that going to mess with you while we're playing? Do you have any idea now? You'll just see tomorrow. This is also part of strategy kind of thing, because you have that knowledge. You know, it's going to be Fat Tuesday.
Yeah, but I think it's already embedded in how we came to be a band. Because sometimes we describe ourselves as a pocket brass band, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, although my instrument's made out of brass. I'm not a brass instrument like you guys, but
Not like us, but you are a brass instrument.
yeah. So, and I think the way in which we've constructed ourselves as a band is a very street, kind of a street thing.
You know, they're loud, right?
Yeah, they're loud.
Yeah.
You know, and we play in a way we can be heard.
Yeah.
I think
Which has nothing to do with dynamics necessarily.
no.
Well, then, to what extent, let's try to make this question out of this, it's a discussion here. To what extent do you think, just Francis, how much is jazz a part of what you do? I don't mean consciously now, it's to say, you're playing something that somebody would recognize as a jazz thing, but I mean, just getting to the saxophone, doing what you do, is there any part of what you do that's
Yeah, it's part of it's the tradition and roots of kind of what comes through when I play this instrument. So, and the combinations and resonances that we pursue in combination is very much, I think, in that kind of from the street to the concert hall. That was kind of like a path that jazz musicians have pursued. So that when you talk about Coleman Hawkins or you saw Lester Young.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just like then or Illinois Jacquet, right? It was the same concert, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I heard that. I mean, I've heard that through records but also through the influences of these musicians on other musicians. So then that comes through me as well.
Now, would you ever play, because I know you play other instruments,
Mhm.
you play a couple string instruments.
Yeah.
Would you ever play them with Purple Gums, or would you feel that that's too far from the essence?
I feel like I have,
Ah,
but I don't remember. I don't exactly remember.
Yeah, you have.
I think I have played
Yes.
other instruments.
Yeah, you play some string instrument. I've done too.
I thought I played the Chinese fiddle with us.
Yeah,
ah,
I had until you just said it. Then I had forgotten all about it.
okay.
Didn't we do that one session? The more better.
More better butter. More better butter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Didn't I play a little
Yeah.
Chinese instrument on that?
I'll have to look. I don't recall.
But I do recall him playing a string instrument,
Uh-huh.
not on the recording, but seeing him sitting right there next to him, seeing him doing whatever he did to make it work.
In fact, I think we did that one in one of those concerts. Was it the one at Cal State LA?
Oh.
Cal State LA?
Was it was it Cal State LA or what was
I don't
that?
think we were at Cal State.
Oh yeah, we were. You remember the kid?
In one of those concerts.
Yeah.
Was it, in one of those concerts?
Oh yeah, we were. You remember the kid?
Which kid?
The cellist.
Oh, the little boy. That was that
Yeah.
Cal State LA?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was in that room. James Newton showed up for that.
Yeah, James came to the concert. It was like we were upstairs or something.
Yeah,
like
we
that.
were in a little hall where
Yeah.
The black box.
where that band played out there sometimes. That
Yeah,
what
the,
they call that band? It had a name.
the
jazz
Luckman
band?
Jazz
Yeah.
Orchestra.
Was that not the room that they used for concerts too?
So it was too small.
It was kind of like
but yes, I
It's a
remember-
black box.
I remember
yeah,
the
it was a
mother
black
and her-
box, right?
Yeah,
and her
And it was
kids.
upstairs, right, in the Luckman Center.
yeah.
Well, anyway, I think I played other instruments.
Well, yeah. We all play other instruments in this. I was just thinking of the, because we are, at least in my concept of the band, we are a brass band. You know, we are a brass band. And you play the saxophone, which is a very specific instrument. To me, it's more specific than a cornet or a tuba because it's a hybrid,
Mm-hmm. Right, sure.
you know. So it's very specific. And, well, since you've played it, those other instruments, this just shows my memory, you know.
But it also sort of validates the fact that if it's a musical idea, we wouldn't say, where'd you get that, or what are you going to do? Whatever, we go, wow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like if I came here and whipped out a harmonica, you'd be waiting. What the hell is he going to play, wouldn't you?
No, I wouldn't. A harmonica, because that, to me, that's in the groove of, if you put in quotes, you know, or what we use in terms of how we describe ourselves, a harmonica would fit right in, you know. And if I could play it, of course, anyone can play a harmonica.
We'd have to talk about that. But maybe we should
I
do
didn't
that.
say how.
We're doing stuff now that maybe we should
Yeah.
be doing as a group.
Yes, yes, yes. So,
But I got one question before.
yes, sir.
Francis, do you remember the first time now, beyond the funeral / memorial, where the three of us just played together? When was the first time we actually played together? Because I do not.
That was the
The
time
festival.
the San Francisco Asian American Jazz Festival in San Francisco.
Mm. Who else was on the show? I don't.
Okay, well, actually, there was a spoken word artist who was on the show, who had a harp player and a violinist, and they played first. Then we played second. Now, the night before, Malachi Favors played a duet with Tatsu.
With who?
Tatsu Aoki playing the bass, from Chicago.
Oh yeah. Now see, I'm remembering some of this stuff that I
Yeah.
wouldn't have been able to pull up if you hadn't said that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, but that was the first time we played.
Yeah, and you played some piano on that.
But that I don't.
There was a piano. There was a piano in
And
there.
then the back or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Or
on
something.
the side.
Yeah.
But I do remember sitting up when we were having a little meal or a snack or something, sitting across the table from Malachi.
Yeah, we went to the
The Denny's.
Japanese restaurant. Oh, we
Japanese.
well,
This wasn't a Denny's.
well, actually, we had 3 meals. We had the Chinese restaurant was the first night, and then we also ate in the Japanese restaurant, and then we after the show we ate in the Denny's, and you had you asked the waitress to bring you some ranch dressing just on the side.
Was this not a Denny's with a special decor, unlike the usual Denny's?
Yeah, it was unlike, and then they had the thing where they grabbed the little prizes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And the interior they had tile around some of the seats.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only way I would ever thought this again was of us talking like this. Because I'd certainly forgotten all that. I remember that Malachi wasn't well,
Right.
but he was totally into what we were talking about at the table.
Yeah, and then we were sitting and listening to Malachi, and you were just commenting on his kind of workmanlike approach to the performance because of all the little instruments.
Oh, yeah,
and-
see, I remember, unless you said that, and I remember we were going into detail about how important it was for him to say, have the tiniest little bell that you only hear 3 feet away.
Yeah.
But it was an integral part of what he was doing. Of course, that's what I liked about the art ensemble. We could go on and on there. Forget we're talking about purple colors.
But I think there's that it's worth mentioning because that's a connection, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know.
So Francis, Purple Gums, it's an ensemble that doesn't rehearse. We show up and we play,
Mm-hmm.
but we have a communication that happens when we're playing. Now there's just an exchange here in terms of memory about origins, but meals, social interactions outside of the performance space sounded like that's a big part of how we generate what we generate when we perform.
Mm-hmm.
Could you speak to that a little more from your point of view? And I ask you in particular because you are a big driving force and you create the situations where we can perform and you take the time. I mean, we all do, but you especially take the time for these opportunities of communion. So I suspect that, like me, and I think like Mr. Bradford, you think they're kind of important, those opportunities of communion away from the horns. So say something about that if you have something to say.
Well, a lot of gigs that happen out there, people just take off right after the gig. And so there isn't a sense of camaraderie and a sense of sharing after the gig. And so, but to me, the performance, the actual formal performance is only one part of the performance. Because if we think about the purpose of the performance isn't solely about the audience that we're performing in. The performance is actually just our interaction. And that we value and engage with each other as humans or whatever. And so that's why we have nice meals, right? Like we had before we played at the library, right? We had that nice meal at that restaurant, right? That the last performance we did. We all went out to dinner before the concert.
We're old, man.
Where was that, Francis?
That was wasn't that the Thai restaurant that we went to?
I'm trying to think of the library.
What city were we in?
Well, it's the Eagle Rock Cultural
Oh,
Center.
the Eagle Rock.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So before the Eagle Rock performance,
Yeah.
like we had that really nice dinner, right?
Yeah, and I said,
With
well,
other people.
and
Yeah.
your wife was there.
Yeah, my wife was there,
And-
Edna was there, and
And
Origi.
Kim was there.
Yeah, you know,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
Richard was there.
yeah, it was just this kind of communal
oh yeah,
Yeah.
thing, right? And that was in some ways as much of the performance as the performance in the space. You know, so there's these different phases, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see the performance, you know, in the performance, but you don't. I mean, then that's part of what we said at Fullerton was that a lot of it, the performance begins way before the formal presentation happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's where a lot of the story sharing comes from.
Yes. Yeah, and I would ask you how much for you the performances do create a narrative in that space where we're performing for the audience. You know, are they episodes? Are they a novel? But do they have nothing to do with those kind of concepts for you in terms of how you experience them or approach performances?
Well, I'd say that, like, for example, an interesting story is the fact that we had a certain number of performances between 2002 and 2007, I think, right? And then we didn't play together for almost 10 years. And then we came together again. And we started playing together.
How long was that gap, you think?
It's like 9 years. So I just think that's interesting,
Mm-hmm.
I do too.
you know? And so then I think we are a story, you know? Because you think about, you know, Glenn passed away in 2000. So that's when we were actually in the same room playing together. I mean, there's other people playing, right? And then we had our first gig as the three of us 2 years later. And then it might be, I think it's 2 years. And then we had a few gigs over, and then we had a break, a hiatus.
Yeah.
And then we kind of came together, and we've been now doing this like since 2016, I feel.
Yeah.
So this is our 4th year. We're going on our 4th year. So, but all told, you know, it's a 20-year history.
Yeah.
Or 19, right? You
Yeah.
started with 2000. So I think that's interesting because it's like a epic. Because epics don't happen just, you know, something's happening every year, but there's kind of like this long arc.
Yeah.
And it's rooted in some history, right?
Yes.
There's people before, and then with what we're doing is then there's this kind of, there's other ripples being created by the performances that we give.
So that's kind of embedded in you when we're performing.
Mhm.
That's just basal in a way.
Mhm.
Like the blood flowing through your veins. Yeah. Okay.
So every time we do have a performance, it's a memorable moment. That's part of kind of this long, you know, arc of meetings or passages or rites of passage.
Having said that, I've mentioned this to you before, but how do you think it would impact us if we had to play like 6 nights in a row? Barring having to take some long trip from in between, like some horrible plane ride. But it's like if we played 6 nights in a row now, just say in the LA Basin.
Mm-hmm.
We've never played 6 nights in a row, I don't think, have we?
No, but we've come close, you know, in what, 2016 or
Yeah.
2017?
2017.
The reason I asked the question, at the root of the question is, how do you think that would affect what we do if we had to do this stuff? Let's move it to 10. That's absurd, of course, but if we had played 10 nights in a row.
That's a negative attitude, man. Calling that absurd, man. Don't be negative.
Right. Well, okay, nine nights. But what I'm saying, when we start to, what is your feeling about how that might affect what we do? You know.
That would be, it might be challenging, but I also think it'd be possibly historic, you know, to play that many gigs in a row and to take on the challenge. So we couldn't, it's not predictable how we would do.
For sure, I understand. That's the root of the question, you know.
Because I think that in some ways, like the way you describe our performances, Roper, is like the performance is a rite of passage for you.
Interesting.
At least that's what I got from it, because it's like facing a challenge,
Mhm.
you know, and because you know there's this thing, you know. I think it has its resonances with like there's this guy named Musashi who wrote The Five Rings, this book of the Five Rings, and the last book, The Fifth Rings, he says it's like facing the nothingness, you know, which I always kind of thought of it like what Charlie Parker said about learning everything and forgetting it. And you know, when one goes to perform,
Yeah.
you're supposed to forget everything you learned.
But you're supposed to have learned it.
Yeah.
Right, I get it.
So that you're free, but you have this learning.
Oh, yeah.
But then the idea is that there's nothing, you know, nothing, literally nothing in front of you. And so then you're, you know, venturing into that. So that's a form of passage. So if we had to do it 9 times, that would be kind of, it would almost be like a ritual. Or it could become a ritual. In fact, we could organize a series of 10 performances, and it could be seen that way, right? Because we're just doing those 10 performances, not because we had 10 gigs. It's because we wanted to do this ritual 10 times.
Curious idea.
Well, it would certainly be a learning experience, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do we want to stop now? That's
Okay.
32.
Yeah.
And we'll do the 3 of us real quick. And we'll sit up there.